making sure that the hospital is working appropriately, diesel distribution facilities across Puerto Rico, the restoration of the of the communications grid, restoration of the electrical grid, and of course the restoration of the water and sewer. The President of the United States will be visiting tomorrow here in Puerto Rico, and those events, the information will be provided later on. But I'd also like to add that in addition to the priorities that we have, we are starting to focus on other areas, such as maintenance and repair, particularly on generators and instruments that necessitate that logistical route. So maintenance and repair will be critical. Public health emergency preventions, so that we can attend to what might be spots of certain illnesses and displace medical teams, so that we can have preventative efforts and containment efforts from that efforts. And lastly, information efforts that have been going on already, but that I want to make sure that the people of Puerto Rico can actually get news such as this with information relevant to the actions that are being taken and to preventative efforts that will go on Puerto Rico. I want to reiterate that this is a united effort. Our government is establishing a set of priorities, and we're collaborating extensively with FEMA as the lead agency and the Department of Defense, helping extensively with all of the logistics and efforts that we have on the ground. Evidence of this is the results that we will be discussing today. So, for example, we have been able to reduce the time that it takes to get gasoline and diesel in the different stations. This is a net positive. Just to give you a snapshot, we sent out teams to evaluate how much time it was taking to get gas and how much time it was taking to get diesel in certain stations. There is, of course, a variation in between different areas of Puerto Rico. We can talk about those, but in general, 2 days ago, it was an average of 6 to 7 hours at gasoline. 1 day ago was about 2 hours, or really 3 days ago, 6 to 7 hours. 2 days ago, 2 hours, and yesterday was the average time was between 55 and 35 minutes. So there is significant reduction, byproduct of the collaboration on different fronts. Truck drivers delivering and being extremely helpful and extremely diligent. So we thank them for that. The efforts at FEMA and the National Guard, our transportation department, and the military have provoked so that we can have knowledge and situational awareness of what the logistical routes to get to the different gas stations are. So there is an indication that these lines are being reduced, although we recognize later the specific data points of the different areas of Puerto Rico, that some areas are slower and some are certainly faster. This is just an average. To give you an update, we have also we informed that we have 759 gas stations open. That ups the number from 721 yesterday, and the expectation is that this number will continue on growing. At the same time, we expect more fuel and diesel to be coming in the next couple of days. We will be getting about 500,000 barrels of gasoline. That's right, 500,000 barrels of gasoline and about 500,000 barrels of diesel as well in the next 3 to 4 days. I will reiterate that our general services effort is providing gas and fuel to the municipalities as well. So to all those may to use that resource, they can certainly go ahead and use it as well. So for the next couple of days, there's expectations. We have expectations for DACO our consumer agency, to make sure that in next week, 75% of the gas stations are operating, and that we can be effective in setting the price freeze order for the margins of gains in the gains of fuel. And within the month, we expect to have most of the gas stations have been hindered working appropriately again. I'd like to talk a little bit about the human resource and the logistics that we have here in Puerto Rico. The number from DOD has increased. From yesterday we had about 4,600. Now we have about 7,200 personnel here that is deployed to help in many different areas, such as transportation, engineering, field deployment, medical efforts, and so forth. We have over 660 FEMA officials and several hundred from other federal agencies that are working tirelessly so that we can execute and provide for the people of Puerto Rico. In terms of the food drive and the water drive across all of Puerto Rico, a couple of days ago, FEMA received 214 containers, and 199 of those have been delivered for the people of Puerto Rico. Yesterday, 49 missions across different municipalities were sent for food, 15 from the First Lady's effort, 15 from National Guard, FEMA, and other federal agencies. Red Cross had 8, and other volunteer efforts with the central government had 11. This in addition to the 10 supplies to the regional staging areas across Puerto Rico as well. I remind you that we are making an effort to increase the number of regional staging areas so that the distribution is easier across Puerto Rico, and the DOD is working on that in the next 24 to 48 hours. We also would like to say that there are 14 DMAT units across Puerto Rico. 8 of them have been deployed in certain areas, helping critical situations. There's one DMORT unit as well, collaborating with the National Guard's MORT unit, so that we can attend to those circumstances. And again, the expectation is that we keep on getting more human resource here in Puerto Rico, so that we can execute appropriately. In terms of telecommunications, 37% of the clients have cellular service. That has been going up ever about 10 days ago steadily. We have 270 antennas that are up out of the 1,700 antennas that we have in Puerto Rico. That number has gone up from about 230 yesterday. We got the AT&T SatCow in Humacao for telephone and text working, so that has enhanced the impact of people that can communicate in a region that quite limited by communication. We're working on the installation of SatCows in Fajardo, Quebradillas, Vega Alta, Mayagüez, Sidra, Rio Grande, Calle, and they're working on another provisional one in Mayagüez, although there is some service in parts, in half of Mayagüez in terms of telecommunications. So the expectations is that within today we can get Quebradillas and Vega Alta's SatCow up. That'll enhance the communication. Within the week, finish the SatCows for Mayagüez, Calle, and others, which will increase the network to more than 45%. And within the next couple of weeks, our expectation is to have all of the SatCows and 80% of the coverage. In terms of natural resources, we will inform that the Valdoriotti power bombing has been working, taking 200,000 gallons per minute out of the flooded areas. So the efforts today for our Natural Resources Office, they're going to work on 3 mudslides across Puerto Rico and work with supply chain for diesel to some of their generators, as well as working with problems with asbestos and communications with the municipalities so that we can work effectively with the waste problem in Puerto Rico. In a week, we'll have the Guanabatos Casa de Bombas up, and there's a specific effort into Baja for picking up waste and waste of biomedical debris as well across several municipalities in Puerto Rico. In terms of the refugee situation, the number has not changed much from yesterday. We were steadily going down, but today we're still at about 8,000 refugees in 140 shelters. So that number has stayed consistent. At least that's the information we have till now. If that information changes, we'll make sure to let you know. Today we expect 41 flights to the Luis Muñoz Marin, increasing again the bandwidth, steadily increasing the bandwidth of airplanes over here to and again the efforts in the ports to get containers out of the ports and to the people of Puerto Rico with experts in transportation has been working effectively as well. And during the day, we expect that there will be more containers, more transportation experts, more truck drivers getting different containers out of the ports and delivering them to the people of Puerto Rico. And we will continue on with the effort to identify those containers that have food, water supplies, or supplies of first necessity, so that we can hand them over to the people of Puerto Rico. Our expectation within a week in terms of ports is that we will restart the operation of certain cruise liners and commence operations with JetBlue, United, and Spirit in the Aguadilla airport, which will again allow us to get more ample bandwidth over here in Puerto Rico. And lastly, within the next couple of weeks, our expectation is to have the Luis Muñoz Marin Airport back to normal operation status in San Juan. In terms of the hospitals, yesterday we spoke about the extensive collaboration that's being done by HHS, Department of Health over here, the DOD, FEMA, and the municipality, so that we can make sure that the 51 hospitals that are operational keep working, that they have diesel to operate, but more importantly now that we can have a maintenance route as well, so that those generators are working appropriately. We informed that there is still ongoing efforts in the different municipalities to create the super medical shelters. Again, in Mayagüez, the effort is being constructed in the Complejo Isidro Garcías, Manatí, the Acrópolis, Ponce, Coliseo Pachín Vicens, Bayamón, Hospital Regional de Bayamón, as well as others in Fajardo and San Juan. We expect that the USS Comfort will be floating mega hospital will be here within the next 24 to 48 hours, and we would like to let you know 46 out of the 48 dialysis centers are working appropriately. This collaboration in the logistical part of the maintenance, supply of resources, human resources, and people to the areas that need medical attention. The DOD is helping facilitate a strategic view of a map where we've identified the areas of greater need, and those areas will be met with significant support on the medical. We'd like to also inform that we have 14 DMATs in Puerto Rico, and again reiterate that we have one more unit that's collaborating with our National Guard to attend to that situation. I'd also like to state on the security front that we have 78 fixed officials that are at different major retailers in Puerto Rico, so that we can maintain the flow of goods, services for the people that want to purchase them. We received several more EMACs in Puerto Rico, and as I stated, 13 of those EMACs have been active. We have about 14 of them that are still under evaluation, but this means thousands of extra resources on the brigades front, on the security front, so that we can attend to our needs. And some of these EMACs are going to be distributed across different parts of Puerto Rico, including the island municipalities, which had a concern regarding getting more security efforts over there. So today we should start dispatching some of these security troopers to the different island municipalities as well. In terms of water and sewer, 47% of the general service is being provided in Puerto Rico. There is variation. We've always addressed this. We have more than 1,400 generators providing this access to water. So a few of them go down, sometimes others go up. But in general, progress is being made, and in collaboration with FEMA, we are providing generators to different new areas so that we can augment that service. In terms of energy, yesterday the generational plant of Arecibo, Cambalache, got energized, as well as the Hospital del Maestro. Today, there's continuous efforts on other areas that we wanted to make sure we could get. The expectation is, again, yesterday was Friday, but results are still to come. Working on the Corco and Peerless, and the hospitals of Auxilio Mutuo and the Ashford. Within the week, our expectation is to energize Costa Sur and to add to the generation of energy and infrastructure that's critical for the south and the southeast and southwest of Puerto Rico. And within the month, our expectation is to have at least 25% clients having energy. So these are based upon the efforts that are being created to mitigate, to power, without sacrificing the long-term rebuilding that was weak and that we need to make strong. We need to make stronger. At the same token, in terms of roads and access and transportation, our public transportation system is working at about a 50% clip right now in Puerto Rico, and based on the suggestions that we picked up from Vieques and Culebra yesterday, we're increasing the rate of travel to Vieques and Culebra. Yesterday they had 2 trips back and forth. Today Vieques will have 3 trips. And Culebra is going to have still have 2 trips going, but 3 trips coming back. We also informed that Cataño is operational, and within the the expectations of our efforts here in the local government, we want to add more efforts from the private sector to help repair and open roadways in Puerto Rico, making our logistical objectives more clear and easier to get to all the areas in Puerto Rico. Within the week, we'll have 75% of the public transportation efforts working, and within a couple of weeks, having been able to restore the complete 4 trips, the normal 4 trips to Vieques and Culebra back and forth, and have 100% of the bus service in Puerto Rico. Let's see if I'm missing something. I think that's all for the current update. Just want to reiterate that you're seeing progress in areas such as food delivery, access to water, diesel delivery, lines in the gas stations, operations within the hospitals as well. We've energized now 10 hospitals, and recognizing that we're going to have some challenges in the very near future, we're also addressing other sets of priorities, such as public health emergency, maintenance, and repair. And in doing so, again, we'll be able to producing an effort out of the emergency phase, stabilizing Puerto Rico, and then commencing with a rebuilding. We'd like Alejandro Camta to also give an update on the efforts that FEMA is.
Good morning, thank you, Governor. I believe the Governor covered most of the area, so I'm going to be very brief, just touching base on some of the other items with more specific. We continue working in coordination, FEMA, the Department of Defense, the Government of Puerto Rico, as a unified coordination group. So we continue doing that in support of all the municipalities, and we'll continue doing that. The Governor already mentioned what are the priorities. And related to the Community Delivery Task Force, in addition to the 2 million liters of water that we have already distributed in coordination with the Government of Puerto Rico, and the 1 million meals that have been distributed to all 78 municipalities, as you know, and we mentioned it earlier before, we have received additional water, additional meals. So yesterday, the National Guard distributed commodities to the regional staging areas, a total of 400,000 liters of water and 1,000 meals. 42 municipalities pick up commodities during the last 24 to the regional staging areas. So 42 municipalities were able to pick up commodities at the regional staging areas. Yesterday also, the National Guard distributed commodities to 13 municipalities in addition to those that pick up at the RSAs. And scheduled to distribute today food and water to 14 additional municipalities. Related to the fuel task, yesterday we provided fuel as part of our cycle to 8 hospitals. Today we are providing fuel to 10 additional hospitals so they can continue operations. Related to the medical tasks, as the Governor indicated, disaster medical assistance teams, and 8 of them are deployed today to 5 municipalities, Fajardo, Mayagüez, Ponce, and Arecibo, where they're conducting assessments. At the same time, the National Guard confirmed yesterday that they're going to have liaisons on every hospital in Puerto Rico, so they can transmit to the center here any needs that they may have. So they're going to be able to do that. HHS, Department of Health, Puerto Rico, and FEMA voluntary agencies are coordinating medical supplies and donations. We are providing, in terms of communication, satellite phones to the mayors around the island, and many of them already receive satellite phones so they can communicate. Related to waste and water and wastewater task force, 78 tanker trucks supporting the 78 municipalities. So we have assigned tanker trucks to each one of the municipalities, and they are providing bulk water. Today we will be conducting repairs to the Comerío water treatment plant so they can start using that facility on a normal basis. Installation of generators, will continue installing generators, critical facilities, most of them to hospitals, and to water and wastewater production plants. Related to bulk water distribution, yesterday we distributed over 100,000 gallons of water to hospitals and also elderly homes that have been assigned. And in the next 24 hours, we will be distributing, as we do every day, to the 22 dialysis centers facilities. In terms of number of registrations, the number keeps growing as we speak every day. We were in the 30,000s, the 40,000s, the 50,000s. So far, as of this morning, we have received 72,000 applications. This is even with the challenge of the telecommunications, but that's the proactive effort that we're doing with the government of Puerto Rico, going to municipalities without communications, where we're taking our staff with the electronic tablets, and they're taking the registration from there. So the number is 72,000, and the amount approved as of this morning is $7 million. I would like to recognize very quickly the efforts that other partners are doing in support of this operation. Is many agencies, our community concept, and for example, in related, I know we're talking about the regional staying areas, but there's many other aspects that are being here in support of the families in Puerto Rico. Delivered 25 pallets of infant toddler kits to the shelters in the municipality of Utuado, Orocovis, Naranjito, Adjuntas, Corozal, Comerío, Manatí, and Barranquitas. Department of the Family delivered 18,000 food boxes to Fajardo, Arecibo, and Ponce. The American Red Cross is continuously delivering food and water to all municipalities around the island, and yesterday they were able to deliver to Toalta, Dorado, Vega Baja, San Juan, Caguas, Ponce, Aguadilla, Barceloneta. The Salvation Army has delivered over 29,000 meals in the last 7 days, and almost 7,000 bottles of water and 500 pounds of ice to various municipalities. The World Central Kitchen in the last week has been able to prepare and distribute over 50,000 meals to different municipalities around the island. Feeding America distributed 500,000 pounds to multiple locations during the last few days in Toa Baja. In terms of the public assistance program, assistance to the municipalities, we have approved already $21 million to different municipalities around the island, and that number keeps increasing on a daily basis. The governor mentioned that we went yesterday to Culebra and Vieques. We were able to meet with both mayors, and as a result, in addition to all the food supplies, water that we have provided, between today and tomorrow, we will be charging for each island 2 fuel tankers, so they can keep there on a permanent basis, not just with fuel, but also so they can have reservoir for additional times that we supply fuel. We're going to provide also generators to both islands, so they can cover their needs in terms of the water treatment plants, and also the generator that the Culebra Island has. And we will also be sending tarps, the plastic sheeting, so they can cover some of the homes yesterday. And the last thing is that my boss, the administrator, Proclon, will be in Puerto Rico arriving today in preparation for the visit of President Trump tomorrow. Thank you.
I'll give a brief recap in Spanish. Gracias a todos por estar aquí nuevamente, y al pueblo de Puerto Rico reiteramos lo que son las prioridades que hemos tenido durante esta fase de emergencia: llevar agua, comida, combustible, mantener los hospitales operando, los 51 que tenemos, establecer las telecomunicaciones, establecer el funcionamiento de los acueductos y establecer el funcionamiento de energía eléctrica, y a ello le estamos añadiendo ahora en esta fase de transición lo que es mantenimiento y reparo de mucha de la maquinaria que se está utilizando para habilitar, por ejemplo, acueductos y los hospitales, un esfuerzo de prevención que pueda evitar una emergencia de salud pública en Puerto Rico, que podamos identificar las áreas puntuales donde están ocurriendo incidentes, llevar los equipos y evitarlo, a la misma vez informar al pueblo de Puerto Rico sobre el potencial que puede estar ocurriendo. Les recordamos que mañana viene el presidente de los Estados Unidos, y en las misiones que hemos estado haciendo de comida y de agua ha sido una colaboración estrecha entre los distintos componentes. El Departamento de la Defensa ha ayudado y ha colaborado a abrir paso, al igual que el Departamento de Obras Públicas y FEMA. FEMA está proveyendo alimentos y agua, al igual que los esfuerzos de la primera dama, del Departamento de Familia, los líderes electos, constantes han estado llevando también de esos esfuerzos, comida hacia los distintos lugares en Puerto Rico, y al igual que los alcaldes que han estado trabajando para que puedan llegar a su destino. Informando también que en términos de la gasolina y la distribución hemos estado midiendo el tiempo promedio que se tardan los ciudadanos en poder recibir la gasolina y el diésel. Por los últimos 3 días informamos que hay una reducción significativa en el tiempo de espera. Hace 3 días eran 6 a 7 horas, hace 2 días era 1 a 2 horas, y ahora el estimado más reciente de ayer es de 35 a 55 minutos. Hay distintas áreas que tienen unas variaciones, ¿verdad? Distintas áreas, por ejemplo, en el sur oeste es un poco más largo, en algunas áreas el norte es un poco menor. Le estaremos distribuyendo esa información, y les reitero que todos estos datos los vamos a estar poniendo en status.pr. Se aumentaron las gasolineras. En términos del esfuerzo de comida, ya 199 contenedores de refrigerio se distribuyeron, 49 operaciones de distintas áreas fueron a llevar comida y agua a todos los municipios en Puerto Rico, que incluyen 15 del esfuerzo de la primera dama, 15 de la Guardia Nacional y FEMA y otras agencias federales, 8 de la Cruz Roja y 11 de voluntarios del Gobierno Central, además de misiones que ha llevado a cabo FEMA a los Regional Staging Areas. También informé que telecomunicaciones ha aumentado un poco, ya estamos en 37% con el servicio celular. Se han establecido los SATCAVs, ¿verdad?, que son unas antenas provisionales en Ponce, Arecibo, Aguadilla. Informamos que se subió también la de Macao para teléfonos y para textos, aumentando ¿verdad?, el esfuerzo y la red en términos de telecomunicaciones. La expectativa es que el día de hoy se subirá el sistema a Quebradilla hacia Vega Alta, y en la próxima semana se comience a terminar todos los demás SATCAVs a través de todo Puerto Rico. Se están levantando las antenas también, ya estamos en 200 antenas, eso comparativamente a las 30 hace semanas. La bomba de la Valdoriotti está funcionando, 200.000 galones está sacando, o sea que se espera que ya esa situación pueda ir delimitando. Llegados los números que tenemos se quedan más o menos igual. Esos números durante el día, se los vamos a estar proveyendo, pero esencialmente 139 refugios y sobre 8.000 refugiados al momento, al día de hoy. El refugio es poder consolidar en la semana a menos de 100 refugios, ¿verdad?, y comenzar entonces a trabajar con la distribución de esos refugiados, ya bien sea a sus hogares o a vivienda provisional. Los puertos, el número de vuelos aumentó a 40, hoy se esperan 41 vuelos. Esto de nuevo paulatinamente ha ido aumentando de 6 a 35, 39 y ahora 41. De la misma forma, los contenedores y el despacho continúa funcionando de manera efectiva, y la expectativa durante la es que pueda comenzar una operación de los cruceros en Puerto Rico, y que JetBlue y United Spirit puedan comenzar en Aguadilla. Los hospitales y salud, 51 hospitales que están funcionando y que están en la red de distribución de diésel, 10 de ellos que ya han estado energizados, incluyendo el hospital del maestro, trabajando con los super refugios para darle servicios a poblaciones que necesitan acceso a servicios de salud, pero que no son de índole urgente para poner los hospitales. De la misma forma, en seguridad, seguimos recibiendo, sigue aumentando el recurso humano. El Departamento de Defensa ha subido el número de 6.400 a 7.200 activos aquí en Puerto Rico, aumentando significativamente para las tareas de apoyo que vamos a necesitar. Agradecemos a la General Schultz por su liderato en todo este esfuerzo. La expectativa ahora es seguir distribuyendo de manera, ¿verdad?, con la logística este recurso humano para que pueda atender las necesidades de seguridad, como los 78 puntos en distintos supermercados, para que puedan tener esa seguridad, y posterior en otros centros de importancia. acueducto y alcantarillado, informamos que 47% de la población o de los clientes tienen servicio general. Se están trabajando con esfuerzo de los generadores y durante la semana la expectativa es subir ese servicio a cerca de 60%. Así que se continúa trabajando en colaboración con FEMA, en colaboración con el Departamento de Defensa y para tener esos resultados. Me gustaría decir que en energía eléctrica ya se prendió la generación de Cambalache en Arecibo y se energizó el superacueducto. Por lo tanto, sigue el proceso. Los hospitales están energizados y se tiene la expectativa de trabajar con Corco, Peerless, Auxilio Mutuo, el de Ashford, y la expectativa ya de cara a un mes poder energizar el 25% de Puerto Rico. Por último, hay 90 post offices que están abiertos en Puerto Rico. Se han abierto un sinnúmero de bancos adicionales, los vamos a tener en status.pr y se han podido facilitar o a visión de los alcaldes de Vieques y Culebra unas rutas más consistentes y una ruta adicional de los viajes a Vieques y a Culebra para que pueda existir el flujo de personal de aquí hacia las islas, municipios y viceversa. Eso es toda la actualización y estoy listo para cualquier pregunta.
We will take some questions, one question per media outlet. Guapa Radio.
Buenos días. Sí, gobernador, ¿cómo están funcionando los centros de distribución? Los alcaldes van, reciben la ayuda, está limitada la ayuda a X cantidad de productos y la distribución de la ayuda que llega a una población de 30.000 habitantes, que lleguen 10.000 botellas de agua, pues no le llega a otros, y entonces son los que dicen que no le llega ayuda.
Bueno, factores que se toman en consideración, por ejemplo, ya nosotros estamos cerca del 50% de la población que tiene acceso a agua. Pues entonces, dentro de nuestra logística, nosotros empezamos a ver si tiene acceso a agua, pues vamos a proveerle mayor prioridad de agua a aquellos lugares que no tienen acceso a agua. Eso está dentro de la consideración. Lo segundo es que nosotros dependemos de los municipios, ¿verdad? Además de la información que tenemos, de las prioridades, de lo que se necesita, pues dependemos de los municipios que lleguen. Sabemos, ¿verdad? Sabemos que se les hace difícil y es por eso que se está abriendo, aunque el plan original eran esos 11 regional staging areas, se están abriendo más regional staging areas para que puedan llegar a esos municipios. Ciertamente, ¿verdad? No todos los recursos que uno quisiera tener están ahí, la evidencia de eso, pero también la evidencia de la catástrofe que hemos tenido en Puerto Rico es que el consumo, el burn rate, lo que se llama el burn rate de comida y de fluidos, hemos tenido los primeros dos, es más o menos igual al que se tuvo a los primeros meses. ¿Verdad? O sea que hay mucho más necesidad, pero se está atendiendo de manera mucho más rápida y más puntual. Estamos haciendo de nuevo, a la medida que esta comida se sigue distribuyendo, obviamente los municipios van buscándolas, las van repartiendo a la población, pero viene un supply chain, ¿verdad? Todavía vienen botes, hoy yo creo que llega otro bote de FEMA, vienen otros botes de verdad y materiales del sector privado que van a estar saliendo de Jacksonville, así que se sigue movilizando ese esfuerzo, pero hasta el momento que nosotros teníamos entendido es que habían 12 municipios que no habían ido a regional staging areas. No sé si ese número cambió o si nos quedamos más o menos en 12. Y pues, nuestro reclamo es, número uno, solicitarle a esos alcaldes que puedan llegar, y si no, como hemos estado haciendo, pues mitigamos yendo directamente a esos municipios con misiones especiales. Desde las 49 que se hicieron ayer, pues todos esos que no habían contactado regional staging areas fueron contactados.
The New York.
Hi, Governor, can you talk a little bit about the crime situation right now after the storm? Has it changed compared to the crime situation? And what are you doing to ensure that people of Puerto Rico in this very difficult time are actually going to remain safe?
Yeah. Well, I'll mention two or several high-level components, and then I would like our Secretary of Public Safety to address on a more granular level. We recognize that from the onset, security has been one of our critical priorities. Right? So, in the beginning of the storm, we had close to 30% of our police department reporting because they were victims of devastation as well. This has been increasing steadily, and we are getting more assets across Puerto Rico. Every time we identify needs, we take some of, NYPD or New Jersey state troopers and so forth to aid the National Guard and to aid others in different areas of Puerto Rico. As an example of this, today we'll be sending a few contingency of about 5 to 10 people, law and order officials to Vieques, which was a concern, and them being available, it was important for us to be able to address this. So, although we recognize that it is still an ongoing issue, now we have much more resource. People are seeing them in the streets, and that enables us to empower law and order here in recognizing that looting has occurred, of course, but committed to making sure that it doesn't continue rising, that we can level it out, and that we can finish it. Secretary, do you want to answer?
Thank you, sir. Good morning. We monitor the type 1 statistics on a daily basis. We have not seen an uptick because of the situation we see. So we're pretty confident that we're within our parameters, and there's no need for additional security in any particular area.
Noticentro.
A la visita del presidente Trump mañana, ¿en qué medida ustedes entienden podría verse afectada también con los recientes comentarios a través de las redes sociales entre él y la alcaldesa de San Juan, Carmen Yulín?
Yo he sido enfático que aquí tenemos que dejar el ruido a un lado y enfocar los resultados y enfocarlo en los outcomes, ¿verdad? Eso es lo que hemos estado haciendo aquí. Yo estoy aquí para, número uno, asegurarme que toda la colaboración y la ayuda del gobierno llegue aquí, y como he reiterado, ha llegado, ha accedido, están cumpliendo. Y en segundo lugar, para estar disponible para colaborar con todos aquí en Puerto Rico y del gobierno federal para que se puedan dar los servicios de necesidad. No es momento, ¿verdad?, para ruido. Es momento para enfocarnos y tener resultados. Y yo, ¿verdad?, para contestar la pregunta en términos del impacto de la visita del presidente, yo no veo que ¿verdad?, que vaya a haber algún impacto. De hecho, yo creo que el primer ejecutivo de los Estados Unidos esté aquí, demostrando su compromiso con atender la situación en Puerto Rico, dándole apoyo a su ¿verdad?, el gobierno federal y a la milicia que van a estar aquí en Puerto Rico, y dejándole saber al pueblo de Puerto Rico que no nos van a estar dejando solos.
LA Times.
Hello, Governor. Thank you for doing these briefings. My question is, should Puerto Rico be a state? And how would that help the recovery and the island moving forward? And will you talk to President Trump about that? And one last thing, are you concerned at all that if it does not become a state, that the situation of people leaving the island, the exodus of people will get worse?
Well, yesterday I asked for all of you to reflect on, the situation in Puerto Rico and to look at it in a broader perspective. The inequality of Puerto Rico and Puerto Rico is not something that was, here a month ago or even a year ago. It's something that has endured for the better part of a century. And the byproduct or the effect, or what produces that inequality is being the oldest, most populated colonial system, colonial territory in the world. So it is an evident problem. It is no one's particular problem or fault that we have that right now, other than looking towards the past. But it is certainly our responsibility right now to fix it. It is certainly the responsibility of all U.S. citizens to ask themselves, if we believe in democracy, if we believe in rights if we believe in equality, which are the pillars of our nation, how can we still have a colonial territory with more than 3.5 million U.S. citizens who don't have access to equal rights, don't have the same political power? How, if we are going to go to Cuba and Afghanistan and ask for democracy, how can we do that? How can we have the moral standing to do that if we're not doing it in our own backyard? So yes, it's an important question. It is a root cause of the problem. It is a root cause of the problem because right now we're dealing with public health problems. And the reality is that in Puerto Rico, we receive a third or a fourth of the funds that other U.S. citizens receive in other jurisdictions. The truth of the matter is that, military servicemen and veterans, gave the same sacrifices to the nation they love, but they don't get the same benefits just because they live here. And in addition, I would say it is a bizarre geographic limitation. It has nothing to do with being a U.S. citizen. It has everything to do with where that U.S. citizen is. And I would like to put an example up front. If you are born in Nebraska or New York, and you decide to move to Puerto Rico, you lose all of those rights. And by the same token, if you were born and raised in Puerto Rico and decide to take a flight to Florida or Texas, gain all of those rights. So certainly it is a consideration. Certainly it is a problem. Certainly it has been something that has pushed a lot of the people that don't seem to have the resources to stay over here to look for those resources elsewhere. And let me tell you, they are not going, to Costa Rica, or they are not going to, or they are not going to Russia. They are going to states, the United States of America. So unless we address this lack of equality, you will continue to see the U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico at a clear disadvantage. I have my preference, and the people of Puerto Rico have voted on 2 occasions in the past 5 years that they want to become a state. And this message should be heard loud and clear. But even more so than that, I've stated that the U.S. citizens that reside in Puerto Rico are proud U.S. citizens. The vast majority of U.S. citizens here cherish and love their citizenship. And what we need to do is make sure that instead of this being something that is partial, unequal, and that we mitigate towards the future to address this problem. I stated yesterday that our generation was tasked with some of the biggest complexities in the modern history of Puerto Rico. We have a fiscal oversight board. We have fiscal problems. We don't have access to the markets. We were 2 category 4 or 5 storms. We have a slumping economy for the better part of 2 decades. A lot of this has to do with the unequal initial conditions that the U.S. citizens of Puerto Rico have. So, taking this opportunity, yes, if we value what it means to be a U.S. citizen, then we must understand that for us to have the complete of what it really means to have a democracy, and have liberty, equal rights, our nation must attend to the reality that it still has over 3.5 million of its U.S. citizens in unequal terms. And I'll tell you, in our path forward towards rebuilding, reconstructing, and making a better Puerto Rico, there would be no stronger demonstration of that commitment than allowing the people of Puerto Rico to exit once and for all this on equal status and become equal partners in of a better, stronger nation.
Hay una question per media outlet, el nuevo día.
Buenos días, gobernador, y a los miembros que están con usted. Ciertamente no cabe duda de que la ayuda ha comenzado a llegar a los municipios. La queja principal, sin embargo, es que no llega con la rapidez necesaria o no llega a la cantidad que necesitan. Yo quisiera que precisara entonces cuáles son los obstáculos, lo que impide con celeridad para que todavía haya gente que no tenga agua, me refiero a agua potable.
Sí. Buena pregunta, es una cuestión de nuevo de recursos y de logística que se están distribuyendo. Hemos estado hablando de cómo poco a poco ha ido aumentando, ¿verdad, Gloria? O sea, ya hace tal vez unos días estamos hablando de que no estaba llegando. Aunque estaba llegando, pero era porque eran cantidades limitadas. Ya estamos hablando de que está llegando, pero se necesita. Yo reconozco que se necesita más, pero estamos en fase de emergencia todavía. Una vez que nosotros podamos estabilizar ese flujo de las necesidades básicas, podemos trasladarnos de esa fase de emergencia. Así que yo reconozco que no es todo lo que quisiéramos dar, pero de nuevo, poniéndolo en contexto de que esto es una emergencia sin precedentes que posterior a todas las agencias federales, estatales, la diáspora, que le quiero agradecer por sus respuestas extraordinarias a ayudarle al pueblo de Puerto Rico, han comenzado a distribuir recursos, pero lo cierto es que por la magnitud de esta tormenta y se ha consumido muchísimo más que, ¿verdad? Que por ejemplo en Georgia en el periodo de tiempo, y se ha traído muchísima más ayuda que lo que no vamos a descansar hasta que todo pueda pasar. Ciertamente ahora el objetivo es que la gente pueda tener suficiente alimento, suficiente agua, aunque no sea toda la que sea requerida, sí, la que pueda garantizarnos que podamos sostener vidas y entonces pasar a la fase de estabilidad.
One question per media outlet, CBS.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
Oftentimes when it comes to statehood, it's not a front page story in the U.S. It's a lot of times not even in the newspaper. You've been criticized for using a natural disaster to push a political agenda, but I wonder if you see this as sort of the one chance you have in the limelight to get across something that you feel is important. You think this is really your only one real chance that you've got to make your voice heard?
Well, I don't think the nation, other U.S. citizens are to give just one chance. I think we could have many opportunities. As a matter of fact, you've seen me talk only a bit about the natural disaster for the better part of 11 days. I never touched upon this. When yesterday, actually it was you who asked the question, it got me thinking. It is important that we get context, the larger context of what's going on in Puerto Rico, right? I mean, as we mentioned, it's of no fault of theirs, but post-storm, when we were on all lines, only half of our fellow U.S. citizens knew that we were actually citizens as well. So that begs the question of, do we understand the context? Do we understand the already laid upon limitations of Puerto Rico? Sure, for the first 10 days I spoke about the limitations of being an island, of how devastating this storm was, and it impacted all of Puerto Rico, and that it destroyed the whole of the energy grid. But I wanted to bring further context, further context onto the reality. I am pro-statehood. I've never hidden that fact. I wanted to alert about the inequalities that we had. I didn't speak about statehood. Statehood was addressed today through a direct question, and directly towards it and placed my position on it. What I want to make everybody aware is that, the hardship, the collapse, the reality that our poverty rates are 3- or 4-fold higher than in the United States, the reality that we get less resources for different medical needs, the reality that we don't have a choice or a vote in Congress so that we can action upon important decisions such as the ones that are going to be taken on next week in terms of the aid for Puerto Rico. We thank on a bipartisan level, because we seem to be getting a lot of senators and a lot of surrogate congressmen and congresswomen, and I cherish that support. But in the greater scope of things, there's that limitation, David, and I can't hide it. Nobody should hide it. We should talk about it. We should recognize and analyze why this is such a challenging disaster on the context of the topography of Puerto Rico, on the context of the strength of the hurricane, on the context of the resources that are coming over here, but also on the underlying root cause of major problems in Puerto Rico, which is that we are a colonial territory in Puerto Rico, and until that problem is addressed, I think it is negative for Puerto Rico because we don't have access to equality. But more so, it is an unfulfilled dream of the United States that we can have complete and equal democracy, that every citizen could be equal in terms of its rights. Those things are not fulfilled yet, so I do want to let everybody know, the nation, in the world, that this situation is going on, and until certain action is taken, we will always be limited. And I would like to lastly say, we've had 2 plebiscites in the last 5 years. That hasn't, that's penetrated somewhat, but not as much as it should. And let me reiterate again. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, and they voted on 2 occasions that they want to become a state. Now, whatever the path forward, or whatever the path to fixing this situation, I know there are steps, I know there are things that need to be considered and discussed. But the fact of the matter is that it needs to be considered and discussed, and action needs to be taken. And this is our plea. Of course, I didn't design it that way, David. I was focusing on the emergency at hand. But yesterday, your question, it sort of prompted me to ask for a reflection so that people everywhere can recognize what the underlying inequality, historical underlying inequality, and not the fault of the current state governments, not the fault of the current administration, certainly not the fault of the people of Puerto Rico. It has been a long-lasting problem, and we need a solution now.
Una pregunta por medio, el vocero.
Buenos días, mi pregunta es para la campa. Mencionó que Long estaría llegando mañana. Si podría decirnos qué tipo de trabajo estará haciendo en preparación para la visita del presidente y de la agenda de Trump para mañana.
Sí, el administrador Long está llegando durante el día de hoy y nos vamos a reunir para darle un briefing completo de la situación en Puerto Rico. Estaríamos reuniéndonos también con el señor gobernador y es en preparación a la visita de mañana. Durante el día el presidente va a estar con nosotros y ahí se dará más adelante de dónde se va a estar.
One question per media outlet, the financial.
Hi, Governor. Could you update us on the progress of PREPA and what the Army Corps of Engineers is prioritizing? And I'd like to know if the austerity measures before the crisis or before the storm has impacted PREPA's response.
PREPA, I think, prepared as well as it could, and I'll give you a little bit of a timeline. We were only able to put our CEO in about 3 months after the administration started. He immediately came about executing a short-term mitigation strategy, right? The idea of the mitigation strategy was to identify the most vulnerable areas in Puerto Rico in terms of its energy grid, go to it, and make sure that it was reinforced. So this effort went about, and I think it was very successful. I know it doesn't look that way now because our grid was devastated, but let me put it in context. When we came into the administration prior to that, we knew the energy grid was weak, was unmaintained. But the reality is, in order to change that, it takes a year, 2 years to do it. So immediately, we started on a mitigation strategy to make sure those vulnerable areas were more robust. And the effects of Irma, we were able to restore energy to about 97% of Puerto Rico. I think, based in part on that mitigation strategy that allowed us to maintain some of the core centers, some of the most vulnerable areas unharmed. However, when a Category 4 or 5 hurricanes, and when you have weak infrastructure, it's going to be devastating. We knew that. So we alerted the people of Puerto Rico. Now the effort is on rebuilding. The Army Corps of Engineers is going to be a significant part of that. Based on the objectives and sort of the strategies that we lay out, they will put their expertise and their manpower on the ground to help us rebuild that effort. So right now they are designing between 5 strategies that are being designed between the CEO and others. And once that strategy is landed, we can begin to execute sort of on a second plane. Right now we're doing point generation, as we did with Cambalache, Palo Seco, and other areas in Puerto Rico, and then proceed to maybe having a bigger microgrid that allows us to get more energy to more people in Puerto Rico, but that at the same time does not commit us to rebuilding the same old grid that doesn't work and that will suffer even if another storm hits.
One question per media, the economist.
Hi, you talked about the burn rate. I'm wondering if you could explain what the burn rate is in particular, and why it has been so much higher for this disaster compared to past ones, and whether that could have been prepared for in any way.
Yeah, I'll let Campa address that question because it's the comparative of the FEMA resources versus now and then.
Thank you for your question. So we'll be able to clarify that. The comparison we're using is Hurricane Georges in 1998. That so far has been the largest disaster that ever hit Puerto Rico, because all 78 municipalities were also affected. But the damage that we have under Maria is more significant than any previous disasters. We have more destruction to homes. The electrical grid has been heavily impacted, more than during Hurricane George, even though it was a hurricane that affected the entire island. And the number of people, the entire population of Puerto Rico, we can say this time that the 3.5 million people that live in Puerto Rico, we have been affected. All of us have been affected in our houses, our homes, our families. So the impact is much larger, and that's why, as the governor indicated earlier, in a matter of 12 days and with the upcoming water and meals that are arriving, we're going to reach the food and water that we bring for Hurricane Georges in 1990 in just that short period of time, and it's because all 3.5 million people in Puerto Rico were affected one way or another. You are aware of the electrical grid, the percentage of customers with power, same thing with water. So it has the largest disaster ever hit Puerto Rico that affected the entire island.
Let's excuse the governor and the federal officials. We have another media event at the airport.